On today's show, we're talking all about writing groups. Plus, we have some exciting news, so stay tuned.
Welcome to the Christian Indie Writers Podcast, where we inform, encourage, and support Christian indie writers on their journey to publication. I'm Jamie Hirschberger. I write short fiction under the pen name J.R. Nichols.
I'm Jennifer Carl Tong, and I write historical Christian romance.
I'm Christina Catane, and I write Christian dystopian fantasy.
And we're all still coveting prayers for our fourth hostess who can't be with us today, Rhonda Hagerman, who writes fiction under the pen name Dee Dee Bowman. How are you ladies today?
Really good.
Good. Good morning to our chatters. Barbara and Piper are already saying hello. Good morning, ladies. If you listen to us recorded on one of the many platforms where we make the podcast available, we do appreciate you so very much, and we thank you for your patronage. However, if you're ever available on Friday at 10 o'clock Eastern Time, you'll want to tune into our live broadcast and join our exciting chat. We have people from all around the states and across the pond who join in pretty regularly to give their own writing advice and share wisdom and inspiration in our live chat. So do join us there. And if you like what we do, please like, subscribe, share, tell a friend. If you don't like what we do, tell the world. And also share a link.
Links.
Mm-hmm. So good morning, Shell. Good morning, Gigi. Hi, Liz. Hi, Jess, who called us beautiful ladies. So we really like that. Thanks
Good morning, Gigi.
Gigi. Okay.
I love all of our chatters, but I really feel like Piper needs to get some sort of little trophy today or a sticker, if I had little virtual stickers, because I know for a fact she's not home. She's traveling right now because she sent me a picture of Boston. She was driving into Boston and going to go through there to go to New Hampshire. And because for those of you who don't know, that I lived there for several years, went to college there. And so good for you, Piper, hitting the road and still gonna make the podcast chat. We love you so much.
Thanks,
so
Piper. That's really flattering. Oh, hi, Jason. Haven't seen Jason in a while. Good to see ya. And Jen, I just have to notice that you have earrings that are visible today, in case you were wondering, like, it is not a waste. And since I've noticed your earrings, how about I ask you first, what's up? Every week we go around the virtual table and ask our hosts and the people in our chat, what's up with you? What's up with you, Jen?
I learned something very interesting about myself this week.
Hmm.
I learned that it takes a very long time for muscle relaxers to leave my system. I had
Wait a second. Did you also learn that the brain is a muscle?
Yes. You guys know that I struggle with headaches, and years ago I had a doctor prescribe muscle relaxers because I will get tension headaches so bad that the muscles will knot up all the way on the back of my skull and everything. And I don't use them very often at all because they're like kind of old. So like that's how I know I don't use them. He gave me a 30-day supply 3 times a day, and I still haven't used them all. Anyway, and it's been years. We're talking probably 4 or 5 years. And but the other day I couldn't get the muscles to loosen up. I have this shiatsu kind of a machine thing that I use, and it hurts, but it usually will like loosen them up. It wasn't doing it. It was just hurting. It wasn't loosening. Everything was so tight and knotted that I finally took one at bedtime. And for like the next day we had a meeting planned, and I was kind of weird at the meeting, and I knew it because I was just not tracking well. As soon as I was the first one there, and then Jamie showed up to the virtual meeting, and Jamie's like, we're talking for a few minutes, waiting for everyone else. And finally Jamie said, "What's the matter? What's wrong with you?"
I have to say, it was a lot of fun for the rest of us.
Yeah, absolutely. It was post 8 p.m. Jen, but it
Yeah.
was not post 8 p.m.
Well, it's so funny because like Jamie, like that's how well she knows me is because she's like, I'm like, what am I doing? Tell me what I'm doing so I can stop it. She's like, no, you just are acting like you don't have your crap together. And I'm like, oh, great. So, and then
Yeah, and
I had
she
to
was
leave this meeting we were about to go into.
yes,
Mm.
she was specifically acting like she was faking it, that she had her stuff together, but that she secretly didn't study for the test. Like that was exactly how I would have like portrayed her. And she's like, "How do you know?" I'm like, "You're just acting weird." Yeah. And so then she explained.
And then the
Yep, yep,
next
yep.
day, we're talking like way more than 24 hours later, I was doing some stuff for us on Facebook and I did it. I was so proud of myself. And I went back hours later and realized that I didn't know how to spell the word listener. Like what in the world? I realized it right away, or not right away, like hours later, and I fixed it. But still, just ridiculous. But I also learned from Piper that sometimes muscle relaxers, when they're old and outdated, they they get stronger. I'm like, oh,
Mhm.
well, these are probably like real
Yeah.
good then because they're
Yes.
pretty old.
It's like a
So
fine wine. Not that I
Yeah.
would know anything about that.
this is why the Christian Indie Writers podcast does not endorse or encourage you to take
Yes.
expired medication. Correct,
No.
Jen? Right. Okay.
Correct. Do not do this. My doctor's watching. He's not going to be happy. Don't do this. Please don't do this. This
Please
is
tell me
my
your doctor's not watching.
this is like the after school special. You know, whatever happened in the after school special, they didn't expect you to go out and do it. This was for you to know this is what you don't do. So this is
Yes,
the
that's
after show
right.
special.
Yes, thanks for being our cautionary tale, Jen.
Okay, you're
All
welcome.
right, we got a lot of what's up in the chat. Hello, Joan. First of all, Joan, her handle is Love Qualified. She's joining us this morning. Jess says she's been doing small sprints every day this
Sorry.
week. Yay for booty in the
Yay.
chair.
Yay!
Yes, good for
Good
you.
for you,
I
Jess.
love the way you spell booty.
Booty.
Tay in the chair.
Yep.
Oh, it's great. Liz says she finished doing the text to speech proofread step and she ordered a proof copy so she can do the visual step of the proofreading. Oh, proof copy is so much fun,
I know.
isn't it? Yeah,
I
getting
love
that
it.
in the mail is a good day.
Mhm.
Piper's being a little cheerleader. Way to go. And Piper says, yes, any medication, not just muscle relaxers, she's saying to us all. And
There's your
Shell
listener.
says, yes. Shell says, what's up? Finished reading book 2 for the summer challenge. She's quite a machine with that reading and reviewing. It's awesome.
Mhm.
And Barbara says she did today's sprint. Boy, we're going to have a lot of fun talking about that.
No, we're like, there
What?
we go. Sorry, no, the chat just like glitched on me. That was not my fault. Sorry.
Oh, yeah. Well, and then
Uh-huh.
Joan says she reached 50,000 words. That's a novel in her
Ooh.
3rd contemporary Christian romance. She's still hoping to finish by the end of the month.
Yeah.
Wow.
Exciting
50,000
stuff.
words. That's
Gosh,
a
ladies,
big
there's
benchmark.
gosh, there's so much happening in our chat. It's just so exciting that like everyone we're not an island by ourselves, right? Like we have this community and we get to cheer each other on and to know what everyone else is doing. And yeah, it's so great.
And then Piper says she's trying to figure out how the bad guys get taken down. Very good. Yeah, that's an exciting place to be
Muscle
at.
relaxers.
Yes. Yes. Maybe they mistake them for something else. All right. So I will do my what's up next. I was thinking about our writing sprint prompt. And for some reason, I was like, oh, and that's the theme of today's episode, but it totally was not. I don't know. So anyway, I was thinking about rewriting the past and how sometimes we wish that we could do that. And I was thinking about regret. And guess what? I closed my tab. So I don't have any idea what I had recently Google searched about what the Stoics said about regret. Isn't that great? So
awesome.
I do know, Tina, do you know which verse it is where God says that your sins are as far as the east from the west? I know that it's somewhere in Psalms. Do you happen to know that reference?
I can Google it.
Yeah. Well, if you do that, I will say that
Psalm 103, verse 12.
Awesome sauce. Psalm 103, verse 12. Do you care to read it out?
I will try. I lost my bifocals. So.
I can do it for you.
Go ahead, Jen.
As far as the east is from the west, so far has he removed our transgressions from us.
That's great because that's permission right there to stop just regretting. If it's funny because I saw a little bit of advice that was like, if you do something that you think, well, that was not great, You can sit down and have a talk with yourself. Now, this is not the way we behave, is it? And then you can say, now we are not going to discuss this, and we are going to move on from this, and we are not ever going to speak of it again. Just the way that you might do to like your child or to anybody else who's come to you with a contrite spirit, because you can rest assured knowing that God does the same thing. And it's funny that the Stoics didn't really value regret. This is from How to Be a Stoic, WordPress.com. And the highlighted bit there says, the Stoic argument against regret then is, one, it interferes with our attempts to achieve apatheia, which the Stoics believed was a condition that was to be desired, because it's not really apathy, but it's more or less like an acceptance of your fate, which we would contentment. Yep. Godliness with contentment. It ignores the dichotomy of control initiated in this particular case by the fact that the past is outside of our control. And the Stoics are big believers in, you can't change the past. You can only do well right now. Do well right now. Do well right now. And so I just thought that that was all really great, because I thought we were having an episode about regrets, and we are not. I don't even know. Like, I didn't even have a muscle relaxer, so I have no excuse. So anyway, that is my what's up for y'all. And what is your what's up for this week, Tina?
Oh my gosh. So many things.
That's good news.
Yeah.
We're here for it.
Yep.
Oh my gosh, it just went out of my brain.
We were so excited. We like cheerleaded you right out of your excitement.
So I went in and I'm doing a giveaway. So if you go and subscribe, I should probably put the link in the show notes. That's what I'm going to do.
Your newsletter was a great newsletter, by the way. Well written, enjoyable to read.
Thanks.
Like, it was.
I did Brian Cohen's little class, and then I did what he said.
Awesome.
There's a plug for Brian. He should come on the show. So anyway, I'm doing this giveaway, and I will put the link to the giveaway in the show notes, where somebody's going to win a copy, one each, of both of my books signed and personalized to them.
Ooh.
So I went in. I hadn't updated my automation sequence in like forever and ever and ever. Like since way back before, when I was just giving away book one to everybody. But I had to take that down because I went to Kindle Unlimited, so you can't do that anymore. So I changed it, and I went into Vellum, and I formatted. I figured out what 10%, because on Kindle Unlimited you can give away 10% of your book. So I figured out 10%. I generated a book that's only 10%, with a link in the back to read more, so they can go purchase the rest of the book. And I'm making that my reader magnet. So I went in there and I spent it took me 2 days to do all of this, but I got it all done. So now I have a new sequence, I have a giveaway, and I have a new reader magnet.
Good for you. All that hard work is going to pay off. I just know it, Tina. Way to go. One step in front of the other, right? Amazing.
Right.
All right. Do we have any more what's ups in the chat?
I don't think so. I think that everyone is excited as we are to move on to the topic of today.
Writing groups.
This has been one of our most popular topics, honestly. If whenever we look at our stats, these are our top podcasts when people go searching for us.
Yes. And so we wanted to revisit the topic of writing groups, especially based on the heels of the conversation that we had last week on the podcast. We had already talked about discussing writing groups in a little bit more depth. And so in our planning meeting, what we finally landed on was what we want to talk about today is advice for people who would actually like to start their own writing group. Because honestly, if we had $1 for every time somebody said, I wish I could find a writing group like the one you guys had, we would have a lot of dollars.
Right. And the reason we have a writing group like we guys have is because we started one.
Right.
Specifically, Rhonda Hagerman.
Yes. Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. Because like we were in everyone else's shoes. We were just like everyone else out there looking for a community. And I tried finding it with NaNoWriMo, and I I went to the group. So that was my very first year. And it was good. There's writing sprints happening, and we have a very active nano group. I know that most areas don't have a successful and active nano group like we do. But still, there wasn't the community I was looking for, right?
It was kind of too big for what we were looking for, I guess, for one thing, and too generalized, and all of these, I mean, it's not to list a whole list of negatives. They're not negatives. It's just didn't match up with your particular parameters of what you were looking for in a writing group, correct?
Also, to share writing, I wanted to have a critique time where people could help me, look at certain parts I was struggling with and get some feedback. But I didn't want to give feedback. I didn't want to have to read some of the types of books that the people in these writing groups were writing. I will read things that are not Christian, but I don't want to read things that don't match up with my beliefs or are against my beliefs. There were some people that were writing witchcraft type of books, some that were writing erotica. I don't need that in my life, right? And so that was a struggle for me too.
Yeah. And so it's funny because everywhere that I would volunteer when I was raising my family, if people had complaints, I would say, don't complain, step up to be in leadership. And so when you hear people say, I wish I could find a writing group, my initial reaction is well, then start one. Be the change you wish to see in the world. And then also you will get to be someone who has a little bit of control over what is going on, right?
Mm-hmm.
So
that's one of the main tools in my pastor's wife toolbox. When people say, you know what we should do? And then they have this idea, then I would say, that is a really good idea. So please let me know how I can help you make that happen.
Right. If God has put that on your heart and shown
Right.
you that needs to happen, it's probably because he wants you to do it. Yes.
Yeah, but
Wow.
their motive is usually, I'm going to tell her and she's going to make it happen.
Yeah.
So
This leads right into our first point. Wouldn't you agree
Mhm.
that the
Yep.
first thing you have to do, number one, when you want to start your own writing group, is to bathe the entire process in prayer?
Yes. Because I'm sure that the feeling is that you want this work of starting a writing group to be of the Lord and not of yourself, right? And
Agreed.
so you have to outlive your participation in the group. In my opinion, that's kind of the benchmark of a group. If something that I'm doing is of God and not of me, it would carry on without my presence, right? Otherwise, it's sort of like I'm doing something and I would rather have the Lord do something through me. Does that make sense? And I think in addition to bathing the process in prayer, it's wise to count the cost of starting a writing group. Would you ladies not agree?
Yes.
definitely.
For sure.
I mean, you have to think about even what kind of time and commitment are you willing to spend on a writing group, and in a realistic way, not I'm going to burn the candles at both ends to make this happen. Really?
Right.
That's not
And on the
sustainable over the long term.
right. On the flip side of that, you can't say, I want a writing group, but I don't really want to put the work into it. Right. So
Right.
you got to be somewhere in the middle. Right. So you need to know you have to know your expectations, and you need to know even the day and time that are the times that you're available for a writing group. If you're starting this, you need to at least have that established so that when you talk with other people and bring other people in, that will be something that you're ready to discuss,
Yes. And my number one tip in that realm is to make sure you're going to be able to be consistent for at least, I don't know, give yourself maybe 6 months. I'm going to commit to consistently showing up at this day and at this time for this amount of time for 6 months, say, just whatever. Because you don't want to do anything that is not sustainable, as Tina said. So probably getting up at 4 a.m. if you're normally someone who likes to sleep in as late as you possibly can isn't really realistic for you. Really think about what's going to be realistic and manageable, because you want to enjoy your service to the writing group. You don't want to dread it.
Right.
And I wish she were here to say this, but I do believe that this is very much how Rhonda started our group. First of all, I really feel like God put it on her heart to do it. I think that she had a yearning for community. But I also think that like like was open to the Holy Spirit to where she could look around the room, because honestly, you guys all found each other, but I didn't sit with you guys. I was just kind of over here. I hadn't figured out that there was Christians in the group yet. I hadn't noticed that at all. But she somehow, and I don't remember how it was, but she zeroed in on me and she messaged me. And then I don't remember what it was, but if you guys recall, that's the same year that I found out that I had cancer and kind of had to back out of Nano a bit. And Rhonda messaged me. We never had spoken, never had met. And she said, I want you to know I'm praying for you. I've heard what's going on. Um, I believe in the healing power of Jesus, and I'm praying for you. And that meant so much to me. And then she kept in contact, and then she reached out to me and said, "Hey, I'm going to be doing this writing group. What do you think?" She also said, "I'm gonna have it at my house
Yep.
at this time."
Yep, she sure did.
So she prayed about it. She asked God to open her heart to who like she should involve, and then she set the parameters of what worked for her, where it worked for her, and what time, and then like left it up for us to be able to fit that in or not. Now, once we
Yes.
became a group and started working together, we did learn to adjust things and like that. But like Jamie said, she set the parameters because if she's going to do it and put that work in, then it needed to fit her. So,
Yes,
And
go
just
ahead.
I did
Mhm.
tell her that you were a Christian because I knew who you were,
oh,
because
okay.
we're in the same denomination, but I didn't know anything about your cancer or your surgery or anything like that. So I don't know how she discovered that part.
I
I
think
don't
they
either.
I think they announced it in one of the sprints or one of the nano
Mm.
things because I had been going and then I wasn't there and I had reached out to them to let because someone asked if I don't remember. I think that's how she found out. But we had never spoken before
Mm.
she messaged me to let me know that she's praying for me. So
Great.
yeah.
Okay, so now that you personally know what you are willing to invest in the writing group, okay, you've made this in prayer and you know you're able to commit this. Now you are going to decide what you want your culture of your writing group to be. And we want to talk a little bit about what we mean by that, okay? So, Investopedia.com talks about corporate culture, and that refers to beliefs and practices associated with a particular corporation. For instance, corporate culture might be reflected in a way a corporation hires and promotes, or in its corporate mission statement. Some companies seek to associate themselves with a specific set of values, defining themselves as innovative, environmentally conscientious, or etc. Okay. So, Jen, you had a lot of good things to say about what you mean by the culture of your group, right?
Well, I mean, first and foremost, we don't have this in our outline, but I all of a sudden thought about this. Like you may decide you don't want to be in a Christian writing group, but you
Mm-hmm.
might want to be just a clean writing group or
Mm-hmm.
like those are the kind of things you have to decide on we wanted just to be in a group with other Christians. We wanted to be able to know that we had like an extra kind of like layer of support there for our writing. We wanted that kind of a community. We also knew that we wanted to make sure the writing didn't have to be Christian, but we knew that it was going to be aligned with what we believed and it was going to be clean. That was important to us. But
Mhm.
other than that, like there are different kinds of writing groups. So you could have an accountability group, which is just a time where you would come together and write. So there are some writing groups that just get together, do sprinting and write. They do it on a regular basis, and that's all they do. There are groups that are for feedback where where are you going to have a critique time? Will you mix the two, or will it just be where everybody comes with an edited piece and then you share and then you give feedback? Will it be only positive? Will there be some like actual critique? Like what are and we'll get into talk about rules and establishing that kind of stuff, or guidelines establishing that later.
Mm-hmm.
But so you could have accountability, you could have feedback. Some are just for support, um, or can have added support. We were looking for the added support. Like we shared
Mm-hmm.
about our own spiritual struggles, the things that were happening in our lives. I don't know if you guys remember, like early on in our writing group, my uncle called and I stopped and I said, I'm very sorry. Because I did respect you all and I respect our time. I said, but my uncle's in his 80s and I always answer. And you
Mm-hmm.
guys now know me well enough. Now he's passed. but like, you know how special he was to me. Right. And so,
Mhm.
but then you didn't know that, but I already knew that like this was a support that you guys understood me on a different level just because of our shared faith, you know?
Mhm.
So
And I also think that over the course of time, we've kind of fallen into all of those categories.
Yeah.
yes,
We've
I,
gotten together and just sprinted. We've done positive feedback. We've done the critique of
Mhm.
the polished pieces, and we've supported each other. And so it's kind of a conglomeration of all of that for us.
And I'm glad you said that, because what I wanted to say, where you want to be as firm can be on what your commitment level is to take care of yourself, there's a sort of a balancing act that happens here, because you want to be firm in insisting that you get what you need out of the writing group, because otherwise, what is the point? But then also allow room for those who come in to suggest that you, in addition to, add in some of these other components. And that's where it becomes a matter of, I think our next point, if I'm not looking at the outline, is our next point talking about who are you going to share it with? Not quite yet. Well, we were talking about, we're going to talk about that later, because you want the group to serve the needs of the people who are in it.
yes.
And if they're able to show up at the time, date, and location that you are firm on, well, then why not get their feedback as to what they're looking for in a writing group as well?
Right. I agree. I think it's okay if we jump around a little bit too. It doesn't really matter because I feel like the next point was we were going to talk about whether it would be virtual or in person, which we kind
Mm-hmm.
of already kind of touched on that. Like if you were the person establishing this group, you make
Mm-hmm.
those decisions. Jess
Yeah.
says that she started a Slack group for Christian writers. For those of you who don't know, Slack is an online kind of like a messenger, kind of
Like
a
a cross between Messenger and Discord, I think.
kind of,
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah.
For Christian writers because I wanted like-minded writers, but I haven't put much effort into getting the word out. So I'm excited to hear the conversation today. So yeah, so you can choose to do it virtually. You can choose to do it in person, but those are some choices that you need to make. You can't go at this kind of like, well, let me see what other people think. It won't work that way. I'm sorry to break it to you. Like you have to kind of make some of these decisions because it's going to fall on you, at least at first, until the group becomes established and you get other people that kind of rise to the surface to help with the leading of it. Would you guys
Yeah.
agree? Yeah.
Totally agree.
And I already talked about the level of heat. We talked about that for us, it was important to like it to be Christian writers. And so yeah, that's a decision you have to make too.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I think,
Okay.
I think we are where you said, Jamie. I think we are like, how do we decide? Who do we ask to be
Yeah.
in our writing group?
Yeah, and I love what you said about being open to the Holy Spirit, because like I
Mhm.
knew Tina and I knew Vicky, and then one of them ratted me out to Rhonda as being a person of faith.
Ratted you out.
I didn't know Rhonda either. And
Mhm.
It was
so
Brian.
That's an inside joke. We've
so
nicknamed Tina's brain Brian. So any future
good old
references to Brian
Brian.
is really Tina.
Yeah. So Brian was the little bird that told Rhonda about me, but it's not always going to be your best friend, right? Because
Right.
your best friend might be like, "Oh yeah, that sounds like a great idea," to be supportive to you, but does she want to be in a writing group enough to help you come up with rules and enough to, do you know what I mean? It's
Mhm.
not, your bestie isn't always the bestie. Maybe your bestie is who you go to like problem solve about the writing group, to take solutions back to your writing group later, but you
Mhm.
need to find the people who are going to want what you want, and mostly who are available when you're available. And so, like, if you're going to do virtual, if you're going to do in person only, and Bestie is 3 hours away, well, Bestie, unfortunately, is either going to have to be a camera in there, but you know what I mean? So let's say you found one other person, right,
Right.
Jen? So, Tina, what do you then next do? Like, so you're like, well, I'm going to reach out to so and so and talk about forming a group. I mean,
Go ahead, Tina. Do you want to go or do you
Well,
want?
lost my bifocals and I can't see the outline, and I'm a little
Oh,
scared to say anything that I might go off.
go
uh,
off,
Um,
girl.
go ahead. Go
but I
ahead.
mean, I would approach that other person and say, "Here's my idea. Do you want to do this?" And then between the two of you, then you can pray and brainstorm of how you reach out to others to get others to join. That's what I would do.
Agree.
Agree.
Agree. Yep, that's exactly right. And it's, again, okay for you to be firm, to stick up for what you need and say, this is a non-negotiable. because you made those non-negotiables, perhaps based on the expectation of your spouse, perhaps based on commitments that you have to your family. Like Jen, answering the phone for my uncle is not negotiable. And you have to be firm, especially at the very beginning with Bestie or with whoever this person is, because more than wanting to be liked by this person, you want to be respected by this person. And so it is very important that you show them that you're going to respect your boundaries and your commitment to the group, just like you're going to respect their boundaries and their commitment to the group.
Absolutely agree. And next week, we're going to talk more in depth about this. We're going to lead this into more of like, okay, now you've decided to start a writing group. Now you've got your own expectations. Like, what do you do next? How do you set up? How do you actually like do this? And we're going to talk a little more about that. But one of the things too, before we go, I have always heard that your writing groups, especially critique groups, have to be genre specific. And now that I've been in this writing group, I would say that is not a hard set rule.
Agree.
If you can find a group of Christian ladies and gentlemen that write in your genre and want to do a writing group, God bless you. Awesome. That's great. But you can do it. Look at us. We are all different genres. But I will say that in order to do that, you have to have the right heart, because Tina does not read romance. She does not even enjoy romance. She avoids romance, but she would have to read it in order to give me critique. I don't understand sci-fi. Like, I like sci-fi TV shows, but I've never read sci-fi. But when Jamie brings something sci-fi, I had to be able to give her critique. And it's not just, and you have to be careful that it's not just your opinion. One time, I gave my opinion on something and everyone's like, Jen, it's because you don't understand cozy mystery. And my advice that I was giving was wrong because I was basing it on something. So you just have to know in your heart, and the group has to be able to have open hearts to understand that we all write different genres, and be willing to understand that we don't always know what's best, and also be willing to learn new genres so that we can help each other. So
Right. And I would even advocate, this is an interesting discussion, because I would even maybe advocate for multi-genre, mostly because you don't want to start turning out work that looks all like one idea of what is good. So we don't want to all be turning out Jennifer Carl Tong books, which is what would happen if we all develop a consensus of what is a good romance. Well, now suddenly we're trying to clone an idea that is perfection instead of being ourselves. So anyway, this is a decision to be made on a personal level.
Right. Barbara says, I was thinking starting out with sprinters group with a feeding of the backs, slide into a more involved group, gently start. Yeah, that's kind of what we did, because we started off with a nano group. And so we kind of did that as well. And then the critique came later. So I think that's a great idea. Jess says, if you're doing virtual, though, how do you protect your writing if you are doing more than just sprinting?
Ooh, very good.
It's a great question. So, I think we should bring that to the table next week,
I
Jess.
think so too. Yeah.
So, help us to remember that next week. That's a great question. We do have answers for that.
Yeah, we're gonna put it into our little outline thingy.
Wait a minute, Gigi says. I remember a feeding of the backs when Tina wrote a bunny romance. Yeah, we all remember that one.
Yeah, Tina writes romance just fine. She's just not really fan. Well,
no. When Tina writes romance, Jen gets really concerned.
Nervous.
I get really nervous.
I don't write pure romance because I don't like happily ever after. I don't. I'm like a tragedy kind of girl.
Yeah,
and so
yeah.
The one time you guys tried to make me write a romance, my main character pushed the love interest off a cliff and he died. So
if you think TV shows like Dallas and Dynasty had a romance element to them, you would appreciate Tina's version of a romance.
but I have to say that one of the benefits of having these multiple genres is, like, okay, I write dystopian fantasy, but there is romance in my book.
Oh yeah.
And I can learn from Jen.
And
there's like going to be a science fiction-y element in my next series, and I can learn from Jamie. Like, I like the roundness of that, where I can get these different perspectives of these different genres, and it makes my writing better because I'm not in a bubble.
Kim agrees with you. She says this probably expands your appreciation of the genre, or at least the process of writing it. Agreed.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And Barbara says also different genres equals growing. Yeah.
Yep.
Yep.
Agreed. Yep. So ultimately, we believe that if you are feeling a lack of community and you have trouble finding a writing group, we think that's probably God's way of telling you that it's time for you to start one. And so we're so glad you showed up here. We're so glad you're listening to this podcast. And we want to make sure that you stay with us because we're going to talk more about it next week and really give you some real meat on how to do that. So be praying about it this week. Keep praying that God would continue to move you if that's the direction he wants you to go in.
And I'd like to say that if you would like help and us to help you pray, reach out to us and to give us the specifics of what you want us to pray for.
Gosh, how could they reach out to us, Tina? What would be the best way, though?
I think we'll tell them that at the end, right?
Oh, I thought this was the end. Okay.
Yeah, it can be the
We
end.
can. Well, we can say it now, but I'm so excited for the feeding of the backs.
All right. Well, I just want to end with this. There's a trend that's going around right now where someone will say something really pithy, and then they hold up a little card that says, if you were waiting for a sign, this is it. So I just wonder if there's anybody out there who's been looking for a sign that says, you know what, I should just start my own darn group. And perhaps this is it. So, and then shall we do our big reveal now and make Tina wait even longer, Jen? What do you think?
I think you should.
Okay.
I think we should make her wait.
So,
torturing me is always the best choice.
It's really my favorite, to be honest.
So we have big news for you. Speaking of starting a writing group, starting a group, maybe
creating community,
for our own sign. Yeah, because what shenanigans have we been up to, ladies? Go ahead, Jen.
For years, we have thought about this. For years, people have been asking for it. And we just have kind of always been putting it off because we just we can't. And God has just finally said it's time. And guess what, ladies and gentlemen? Finally, there is now a Facebook group for the Christian Indie Writers Podcast.
Yay!
I should share screen. Well, of course, it'll look like the back end of it anyways. But yeah.
Well, and we really want to say that it's because we have this amazing community and we want to encourage it. And you know who the amazing community is? It's you, whoever you are listening, wherever you are. We really did not ever expect anybody to be looking over into this corner of the internet, which is why we were putting heads on a stick and having all kinds of shenanigans. We were certain nobody was going to be looking, and you all are looking. And we appreciate you.
Camera in the first place.
It is. We told you no one's ever going to see this. No one's ever going to listen to us.
I was camera phobic.
So thank you. Yeah.
Kim's excited. She's clapping for us and she says, yay, so excited. Shell has got the party hat on. Woohoo. And I think it will be a party. We got some plans over there. First of all, the link is in our show notes. So you can click on it and go to it. You can also go to our Facebook page and it's linked to our Facebook page. But you can go straight to it at facebook.com/groups/listeners of CIWP.
Not listers?
Not listers.
That was the muscle relaxer.
That was the muscle relaxer talking for sure. But we are very excited what's going to happen over there. We'll be able to share your what's up, your what's next. We're going to have some writing sprints over there. We have lots of plans over there. And with the help of some very helpful chatters, we have agreed to partner with us in this. We really want to give a shout out to Shell Vess, to Piper, and to
Joe.
Gosh, my mind's sorry.
Maria Johnson is
Maria Johnson. I know that's what stopped me because I'm like, no, it's not Joe. I can't say Joe. Maria Johnson and Piper Dow. They are going to be helping us over there. They are you guys have probably noticed, they are so helpful in our chat. They've been around since pretty much the beginning and are always great cheerleaders. So we're just gonna be able to take what we do on Fridays and put it over there all week long in this group. And so we hope that you go over there and join immediately so you can start in on the fun.
And if you like it, give me 0% credit. I was a part of the planning meeting and I was like, this sounds great. And then I poofed. So it was Jen and Tina and all the rest of the ladies. And really, really big shout out to you guys for making it happen. I'm really excited about this. In fact, I think I still have to go accept my invite and all of that. So thank you for making it happen. And I hope that it becomes an active space. So it might be a place for y'all to share your writing sprint prompt, right, Tina?
Yes. Or if you want us to pray for your writing group or anything, like if you need prayer, if whatever, we'd be happy to pray for you.
All right. So shall we move on to the feeding of the backs now?
Yes.
And shall I let Tina go first this time, Jen? I always make you go first,
No,
but
but
since
Tina
Tina
is
was
like,
such a good girl.
yes, we teased her, so we need to let her go first.
All right, Tina, what was our prompt today? We have 15 minutes to write, and we're only going to give positive feedback because this is a sprint that has not been edited. It's not being submitted for a critique. It's being submitted for positive feedback. Yay, Tina, you wrote on what topic?
Well, I rewrote what I wrote last week.
Right, because our sprint prompt is
rewrite another piece of your writing from the opposite perspective. And I'm sorry, you have to get a close up of my face because I can't find my bifocals.
We're not sorry.
You're
we
so
love
beautiful. I don't even know
you
why
are.
you're saying that.
So
And then,
hold on, I'm going to select all and I'm going to make this bigger.
so I think that because it's a rewrite something that you wrote in the past, and basically I want a reason to, I'm going to make this a thing where you should maybe fill us in, like what was the original scenario so that people have a little bit of context to wrap their head around. So what was before?
Last week I wrote about two scientists in a lab.
Oh, yeah.
With a DNA extractor machine, and the one scientist was trying to talk the other scientist out of doing something, and then at the end he goes into this cell and there's an angelic being captured in there, and he extracts blood from that angelic being and then goes back out to the DNA extractor. So that's what happened. Although I couldn't remember the name. I think it's a DNA sequencer is what it was called, and I couldn't think of what that was called. So I just said he had his eyes on the
yeah, and Barbara said that this exercise helped her get into her villain's head, and we all hated this prompt when we saw it. And now we're all so happy that we did it, right?
We complained for like 15 minutes straight. I'm not exaggerating. We laughed and joked and talked about other things while avoiding this sprint for at least 15 minutes this morning. But honestly, like I am super excited. I'm super excited to hear both Tina and Jamie's and read mine. Like it really is going to be very helpful for us. So.
And Tina, if I recall correctly, the point of view was from the younger scientist in the last
the
one?
older scientist.
The older. So now this will be from the younger. Got it. Okay, I'm ready.
Nope,
I'm ready.
It's not from the younger.
It's not. Oh, okay.
I went with opposite. It said opposite.
Oh, I'm so excited. Okay, I'm listening.
Raphael could hear the scientists on the other side of the thick glass they had him confined in, as if he were right there with them. No, that wasn't quite right. It was more like he was in their heads hearing their thoughts just before their voices spoke them aloud, like a strange echo. He tried his best to ignore the buzzing sensation at his wrists, ankles, and on his wings. This human technology, this modern-day Tower of Babel, made him wish for another flood. The humans had no way of knowing, of course, the pain their technology was causing him, or that pain could be a relative thing. A human experiencing this amount of pain would drop dead almost instantly, unable to withstand the intensity. Raphael, however, was not human. That fact didn't bother him. He was what he was created to be, and he was content, no, overjoyed, to serve his Creator in whatever way he willed. There were others who were bothered, wanted their own will, wanted to choose their own leader. They'd tasted the consequences of such an attitude. He'd watched them fall, their wings useless to carry them back into the heavens. He watched them land on the dark void that would become the earth, their only light the glow that emanated from Lucifer. He felt sad for them sometimes, yet at the same time, there was a certain satisfaction in seeing them receive what was just. He didn't question his feelings. It wasn't for him to decide what was just or unjust, or who was deserving or undeserving. Take this young scientist, for instance, that even now was entering the cell with a syringe. He was making a decision that was going to be catastrophic for not only him, but the entire population of mankind. Raphael tried to warn him. You need to listen to your friend, he said. It was no use. This man, just a child really, thought he was in control, that Raphael was his prisoner, helpless to escape his machinations. He had no way of knowing that Raphael was simply waiting for the one whose will the entire universe followed, to say the word. Then he would furl out his wings, throw the shackles from his limbs, and rise once again to the heavens to worship the only one he adored. Please don't do this, the older scientist begged. It was an empty plea. Even if the young man listened, it was not his will that mattered anyway. A voice filled Raphael's mind, a kind voice, a loving voice, a voice filled with power and authority. It is time. Come, it said.
What?
Tina! Oh my gosh, goosebumps.
How could you make us wait for that, Tina? How dare you make us wait?
I tried to tell you.
Oh my gosh. Like Kim
I
and I
gave
are like,
myself goosebumps, okay?
I know Kim and I are the same. Kim's like, literal, first she said, I'm tearing up, goosebumps, literal goosebumps. Me too. Me too.
Liz said, wishing for another flood, the machines causing pain. Wow. Interesting thoughts. Agree.
Yep. There's a lot. All right. So, Kim says, ooh, I love this. Barbara says, ooh. And then she said, bam. Yes. Shell says, wow, Tina, incredible. Gave me chills. Like, oh, so good, Tina.
From the moment that you said the word Raphael, I was like,
yes.
Oh, this guy's seen some stuff, right? Like, do you know what I mean? And then it just kept getting better from there. It was like
and
you know him.
And the whole, he thinks that he has me in chains, but this angel is like, or whatever, is like, it's causing pain for him to be there, but he's staying there because he is under the will of our Lord, right? And like, then the way you describe the voice in his head, like, oh my gosh, so good, Tina. Like, it's hard to get feedback on this, because if I was reading this in the book, I would just be like in it. Like, I wouldn't even be thinking about the craft of writing. I would be in the story. Like, so
I think that's what makes it good. I
Yes.
think when the storyteller disappears and you are in that place with those people, and that is what I love when I am reading a book, is to forget that I am reading the work of a fellow human being. And that really was masterful. It was great. I didn't want it to be over yet, though, which is not a positive. So sorry about that. But
I take that as a positive.
I'm just glad I don't have to follow it.
Yeah, I know. Oh my gosh. And yeah.
Thanks, everyone.
Yeah.
TG, yeah, we already got Gigi. Great. Okay, yeah,
we didn't. Gigi said, Tina, I'm so into this. More. I love this. So
awesome.
Good.
Well, this is the beginning of my next series.
Get to it, girl. Get to it.
I have to finish book 3 first. So it's like my brain is like, ooh, I want to write this. And my logic is like, no, you have to finish this first.
I know. I so understand. Like book 4, like I'm already in the world of my next series, and I have been for a while. It just takes a while to get book 4 done. Like, I get it. Yeah. So exciting.
All right. So, my sprint is a little difficult for y'all to understand because it's rewriting a scene from my novel that is yet to be released. And so what happens is it's very much like, you know how Wizard of Oz is like Dorothy lives in one world and then she goes over the rainbow and she's in another world. Well, that is what happens to my main character. His name is Reese, and he lives in a very future version of what was formerly known as Philadelphia. And then he is transported to way out of town. And in the city, so like in the city where he used to live, there's rank, a societal rank, and his rank is called civvy, like civilian, but shorthand, right? And he goes out to this country place where rank is like, it's a whole different place where you live. And when he gets there, he realizes that he is not the kind of person who usually shows up. There's pilgrimages out there, but usually it's the wilds from the city that go out there because the wilds aren't really treated well in the city. And so they're happy to get out and go out to the country place. All right. And that's called Paxton. So now I think you have enough to understand. He gets there. He has an encounter with this woman, and she happens to be the sister of the girl that his eye has caught. Okay. And so whatever. So she's not very kind to him in their first encounter. And this is her before she meets him. All right. I hope I didn't explain it too much to make it good. So, whatever. What will I say to him? Honey bit her lip and pressed a hand to her forehead. What does he eat? Folsom laughed. What do you mean, what does he eat? He's a human being, just like you and me. If you say so, Honey quipped, and Folsom got that stormy look in his eyes she'd seen 1,000 times before. Now, don't you go bringing that superstitious nonsense into this, he warned. Honey felt the baby shift on her back and heard a precious little voice squeak out an unintelligible jumble of sound that was likely meant to imitate the chastisement of his father. Folsom was right, of course. Honey ought not to allow herself to be so preoccupied with the evil gossip spread by the wagging tongues of Paxton. And she was married to an elder and needed to be an example to the rest, treating this civvy with the same amount of respect and honor they would be expected to give any visitor to their home. But she had never entertained a civvy before. The other pilgrims who'd come to Paxton had been wilds, most of them half-starved creatures, easy enough to impress with palates starving for the flavors of local homegrown fare she was artfully adept at producing. But a civvy, someone who mingled with white shirt govies of Libra Salvo and who was used to luxurious provision of the state, that was another matter entirely. She accepted Folsom's peck on the cheek distractedly as she simultaneously silently inventoried her to-do list for the day. Realizing she'd need a basket for foraging and the bit of cotton twill she'd promised to Mrs. Rosamond in exchange for the butter she'd borrowed a week and a half ago, she gathered them up and scooted out of the house, hustling to keep the disappearing form of her husband just in view. The baby had got hold of her braid, and she could feel the simultaneously painful and soothing tug of him twirling it and stuffing it into his mouth, his practice of the language erupting from around it, creating a pleasant soundtrack for the sights and smells of early morning Paxton. Several housefrows called to her from the doorsteps as she passed, and she lifted a hand and smiled back in greeting, resisting the urge to stop off, to delay the inevitable encounter with this stranger her husband had brought home to their village. Finally, she saw Folsom stop and address a pair of wilds Honey recognized from what was likely an earlier pilgrimage, a tall, slender girl and her even taller, skinnier, mohawked companion. The girl was beautiful in that silly dweller way, with eyes full of the world and a lifted chin and upright posture that indicated an ability to handle herself in dark alleyways. Honey was confident enough in her own sort of beauty, which she knew her own husband preferred, not to be jealous. Still, the beauty of the woman could not be denied. They stood talking to the man who must be the civvy, and Honey sucked in her breath as she beheld him.
Jamie, you have such a way with characters. Like the internal dialogue that this woman, like we just know her, right? And we understand like her feelings and like I understand like there's a lot going on and like in this world and you're only able to give us like a little piece of it. But like I still was drawn in with this character and I can't wait to like, so this is not in your novel, which makes me sad because I wanted to be more inside this person's head. Like, are you inside her head ever in the book?
No, because she's kind of a minor character, but see, the more time I spend away from this book, the more there's like, this needs to be in there and this needs to be, but certainly her point of view could not be in there without like a massive bunch of rewrites. So no, do you know what I mean?
Okay, I have a suggestion.
I know what you're going to say.
What?
No. What are you going to say?
This could be a reader magnet.
Oh, that's not what I thought you were going to say.
Oh, no, like, I always thought that reader magnets should be like full novels, which I agree. Those are great. But, I have met someone recently that every book they put out, they do a little something for each book. So that wherever you come into their writing, whatever series or whatever, you're going to get something from that specific series. You can go get all of them, but you get something from that. So what if you had like internal dialogue from just sprints from a bunch of different minor characters and you had compiled them and that would be a reader magnet. Like that would be awesome.
Yeah, that isn't a bad idea because there are things that I would like to include in the book without a rewrite. And so, yeah, maybe that's where I could channel that. So anytime I get the idea to write a particular scene, I could just call it, whatever I call it and include it as an extra. Right.
Yeah. Love it.
Mm-hmm.
I agree with everything Jen said about your characters, but I'd really like to talk about your world building.
Oh, thanks.
Because, oh my gosh. I'm reading a Brandon Sanderson novel right now, and it really is reminiscent with the terms for things that are unfamiliar and yet make sense.
Good point.
like the kind of Wild Westy kind of feeling. Like she has twine, and was it twill or twine?
Cotton twill.
Cotton
Mhm.
twill. So it's kind of like almost Wild Westy, and yet kind of science fictiony, futuristic at the same time. I
Mhm.
just love all the elements that they're so subtle that it all kind of like melds together, and you can see this world. And so I'm like a really big fan of world building. So
Oh,
that
that's exciting to me because I when I wrote the novel, my approach was sort of like masters have gone before me. Thank you, God, for the masters who have prepared an audience that is already able to receive the idea of what futuristic is. So I don't
Mhm.
have to spoon feed it to people. And
Right.
I hope that the way that I crafted the story communicates that things are different without having to say things are different. Do you know what I mean? And so
Mhm.
to hear you say that feels like a big affirmation. So I really appreciate it.
as a
I
fan
love
of that
Friday.
genre, as a fan of that genre, your world building spot on.
Thanks. I so appreciate that. I'm so excited now. And I can't do anything about my book. I'm so busy.
Kim agrees. She says, "Don't stop," and I adore the descriptive baby portions. Yes, me too.
Oh, thanks.
Gigi says, "Jamie, I love this so much. Love your characters. This is so good."
Thanks, Gigi.
Barbara says, "Really good showing human nature and tug between feelings and logic." Agreed. Shell says, "Amazing character work, Jamie. You're so good at putting us right in the scene with descriptions from your character's view." Yes, agreed.
Thanks,
Very well
guys.
done.
Thanks. I love Friday. And I love the work of Jennifer Carl Tong. What did you delight us with this week?
All right. So before we started, I'm like, someone just tell me what I'm supposed to rewrite because I could not. And Jamie started like giving me ideas. And then I decided, okay. So much like Tina did, I put my books in, which I guess we're going to talk about that at another episode, but I did put my books in Kindle Unlimited to experiment, which meant I had to take my reader magnet down. And I took the first 10% of all four of my books, even the one that's unpublished, and I made a reader magnet out of that, which it's like a temporary thing. Because in my what I'm plan on doing is writing like a novelette from the perspective of, if you've read my first book, or even if you haven't, there's characters that get together at the end too that I don't tell anything more about them. And I've had lots of people email me and say, "Are we ever going to get Winston and Elizabeth's story?" And so I'm going to do like a little novelette of their story. But I have been struggling with how to start that. So um, I decided I'm going to write one of the scenes, but from that's written from Anna's point of view. Her mom's sitting next to her. We're gonna get her mom's part of it. So it's
That's
the
so
Well,
fear.
crazy because we did not talk to each other, and we're doing the same exact thing, like
I know.
ten
I have a
percent. And I'm also gonna write a novelette.
Yeah,
I'm
that's
so
funny.
curious, Jen. So your book, your reader magnet right now is 10% of each altogether, or do you have
I
them?
yep, I put them
That's
as one book.
interesting. All
I
right.
went in
And so it's
development, I
like
put 10% and then yep.
so it's
So
like
that it
here's a
could
bit of this book and here's a bit of this book kind of a thing.
I
It's like a
called it the Love and
sampler.
Lance. Yeah, that's what I called it. The Love and Lansing sampler. I made like a little, it's a
Oh.
kind of a cheesy cover, but it's just for a reader magnet.
That
It doesn't
fits
have to.
your whole theme of your book really well. Like the whole sampler idea, like goes
Yeah.
Mhm.
along with the time period.
Yeah,
I
Mhm.
like that.
that's true. Yeah. So, all right,
All
here we
right.
go. Of all the people in the world, of all the places he could possibly be this evening, why here? Why him? At first, Elizabeth tried to convince herself that he wasn't real, that he was merely an apparition from her past life that her mind recalled from its recesses. Activated by her location, activated by memories of what once was, it was only because she was trying to relive her former glory that her mind provided an image of the man. But then he turned and locked eyes with her. Winston Mallory. Elizabeth's heart thudded hard in her chest, the pulsating throbs drowning out the aria of the opera playing out on stage. She broke eye contact with him, but not before seeing the man's eyes grow wide, not before seeing his mouth fall open, not before seeing his lips mouth her name, Beth. Winston Mallory had been the only man in her life to ever call her that. She'd forgotten that, or rather, pushed it from her mind all these years. That's when she knew he wasn't an apparition, he was real. And he was staring at her. She should never have come here. She had left this life long ago and never looked back. The only reason she was even in this theater again was at the urging of her daughter Anna had wanted so desperately to come, wanted so desperately for Elizabeth to join her, and Elizabeth had found it impossible to deny her daughter this request. Her poor, sweet Anna had been deprived of so much that should have been hers. Elizabeth thought that allowing this excursion would somehow give Anna back something she had lost, something they had both lost. And that loss had come at the hands of the man sitting across the auditorium at this very moment. The man that now stood and quickly left his seat. Panic flooded her mind. He was coming to her, she knew without a doubt. She didn't want Anna's night ruined, and as surely the confrontation between these two enemies would be, she must flee. "Would you two ladies care to join us for some fresh air?" the elderly gentleman sharing their box asked. Elizabeth smiled at her savior. "Air sounds lovely." That's all I got.
Oh,
Mm.
I love that.
Yay.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, see, and as I'm listening, as someone who like knows the end,
Right.
I was like, that's what you think.
Right.
Right.
You think you don't like him.
Right. So here's the yummy thing. Okay, so I've been struggling trying to like figure out this story. I knew I was going to write about them, but what is their story after the story? Like, and is it really a story? Like, if they end up together at the beginning of the story, because they end up at the together at the end of this story. If I start a new book and they're already together, how does that work? And I can write that. But now that we've done this prompt, I'm wondering maybe instead of it being at the end, maybe the little novelette goes along the same timeline as this book. So now I have some decisions to make, but at least I feel like I'm getting inside her head and I'm getting to, so
And I really remembered so as you're reading, and this is not meant to be negative, it's just meant to be like I either don't remember the plot. For some reason, I pictured that she had rushed Anna out of there, but it was Anna who
at the
rushed
very
away,
end. This is
right?
the middle. This is the middle. So,
Okay.
it's a
Mhm.
sprint. So I'm not able to
No,
be
that's
as like,
okay. I
yeah.
just was wondering if I misremembered your plot. So go
Nope.
what
So
happened?
in the middle, she leaves to get air with the elderly couple. And at first, Anna's like, yes, because remember, while this is going on
Yeah,
between Elizabeth and Winston,
right.
Anna notices this older man staring at her mom, and she's like,
Yes.
"Ooh, this guy's looking at my mom." But what doesn't realize that the man sitting his son, the man sitting next to him, is staring at her, thinking she's staring at him. So that's how this whole thing starts. And so then now she's panicked because she's like, I need to go get fresh air. But then she realizes he's left his seat and she's like, wait, he can't get to me here because there's like not guards, and you have to read the whole story
Yeah, yeah,
how it's
yeah,
laid
yeah,
out.
yeah.
So yeah, so like this is all happening, but they have totally different perspectives of what's happening. And so yeah.
In this novelette, I
Mhm.
as a reader, like I really want like the past, like what happened between them in the past. I really want to read about that. Just
Mm.
So
a
you kind of
suggestion.
right. So you kind of know, but I would be able to unpack more of it.
Right.
Mhm.
Yes.
Yes, that's the
I
story that I want to hear more
But
about.
the problem
right.
is there's no happily ever after in there. So then you know what I mean? Because the happily ever after doesn't happen until
No, but I can
so
give them more. The happily ever after happens at the end of
okay.
this. So
Yes.
I can happen at the end, but I might go a little bit farther than this because just
Because
because
if
they
Mm.
you're in Elizabeth's head, then she can be reminiscing about what happened a lot more than were able to do in the book,
yeah,
the
exactly. And more
Anna
detail
book.
things that you would never tell your daughter,
Right.
That's
right?
why this exercise was so amazing.
Yeah.
I
So,
highly recommend it for everybody. And I saw in the chat earlier that Barbara has done hers, and I hope that she'll put it in our Facebook group. And I hope that everybody will go over there and read it. And if you take a crack at this writing prompt, I hope that you will also share it in our brand spanking new Facebook group. But I hope you'll also put it on your own social media, put it on your website. You are a writer after all. Why not
mhm,
show people what you can do in just 15 minutes? Get other people eager and hungry for more of your work, right, ladies?
agreed.
Agreed.
Okay.
So thank you everyone for all the positives. I just want to say something to Kim. She says, I want to know what happened to cause the rift and the intimacy applied by his mouthing her name. If you read Searching for
Searching for
Anna,
Anna.
you'll
Mhm.
get a lot of that, but you won't get all of it. Like you won't, like you'll understand, which I think is what's going to make this people enjoy this story because they're going to know. They'll be like, no, you're wrong. Like they're going to be yelling at the book a lot. So anyway.
Shell says, ooh, yes, Jen. Yes. And Gigi says she loved the tension, Jennifer. She loves it. And then Barbara says she's got to know what happened, how they got over their barriers, etc. Searching for Anna's, how you find out. Right. And how do they get it?
Oh, it is available on Kindle Unlimited. You can also order the paperback, but yes, it's now available on Kindle Unlimited. So if you have KU, you can read it for free with your subscription, or you can also purchase it on Amazon.
All right. And so we need to do what's next because we are a little bit over. What's next with you, Tina?
What's next with me is I need to get my brain out of Raphael's world.
Yeah. So hard.
And back into Angelica's world and get this book 3 written. And also I've been doing I did this free seminar. I got a free ticket to this webinar this week about quiz funnels and how you can use quiz funnels to get that zero party data, which is like when you get the person's email address and their name and that. And it's really interesting. And I've been developing a possible quiz funnel. And I don't know that if I can afford to do it right now, but it's definitely giving me some marketing ideas and even possible topics for future podcasts.
Awesome.
So
all right.
What's going on with me?
What's next?
You, Jamie?
Yeah, what's next for me is sadly nothing really writing. Writingshorts.net is my author sort of where I do my creative and where I reach out to my readers and things like that. And it's been the newsletter that I do for Writing Shorts has been on hiatus, but anybody who wants to read more of my work can go to writingshorts.net. All of the sprints that we've done, I put there. So there's plenty of free short stories to read, although I'll warn you, they haven't been edited. There are several stories that I published in the newsletter that have been polished and edited. And so those have a nice, pretty graphic to go along. So if you go over to writingshorts.net, you can get more from J.R. Nichols. Otherwise, you're just going to have to wait till my life gets a little less crazy. And then I'll be polishing up and publishing my novel. But for now, writingshorts.net to see what I have written. Jen, how about for you?
Well, I just realized that I got a ton more chapters back from my editor. So I have a lot of editing to go through this week. She's almost halfway through the book. We're pretty close to that. So it's so exciting for me. So when I'm not editing, I'm going to be hanging out on our Facebook group, introducing and saying hi to new members of the Facebook group. So I'm super excited about that. That's my what's next.
Okay. And sorry, we can't really get into too many of the chat. What's next as we are
That's
over
okay,
time.
though.
Yeah.
That's okay, because around noon, there will be a post coming out on the Facebook group for what's next. So go join the group, add your what's next, and then we can all comment and like and support each other there.
Wow, that's really neat that we have that now. Thanks, everybody. All right. So that concludes this episode of the Christian Indie Writers Podcast. Until next time, may your pen be prolific, may your deadlines be met, and may all of your words honor Christ. Bye now.
Bye, everyone.